In this video, in this class, I will cover the API services class. Okay, we created a navigation services. How the created navigation services? Similar like that, we're going to create a network services. Let's change it to API services. Okay, API, change it to API services. Okay, in the future, we'll change it to, if using the Firebase, we can change it to Firebase services like this. Okay. So API services, the class, in the class, we'll use that. See, everywhere we are using the cars view model, everywhere we are using the D object, D object, D object, D object, right? Instead of creating the multiple places the D object, I will create separately in the one file. Okay, and I will create this URL also. I will create this directly. I'm using the DO method. Instead of that, I'll create our own wrapper class inside the API services. In the future, if you don't want DO package, we can replace in the API service only. It's not affect on the existing functionality. Okay, for this, I will create a one DO object here. It should be it should be private. We can't access from the outside of the class directly. Okay, we created it, and then we'll create a constructor. So this constructor is called inside I will set up the base URL for the, okay, do dot, there is an option called the base options dot the base URL properties. Here we'll pass the directly our base URL. So no need to pass the so previously we are passing the base URL plus endpoint. Like this, wherever you call the API, we are using the base URL everywhere in the project. Instead of using the everywhere in the file, just I set up the base URL here only. Just we need to pass the endpoint. Okay, just we need to pass the endpoint. And what is the method so far we're using? Get method, post method, delete method. Okay, now we are going to use upload also. Uh, Upload data using form data. Okay, next what we are using, get to, post to, delete. We are using this method, and put method also we are using. Okay, in the future, all the method I will write a wrapper class of the do package. So here, let's write future. Okay, is a dynamic. So what is the information sending back to this backside server? That I'll write this get call. Okay, so create a method like this. Here I'm passing the URL. That's it. Wherever the get call, directly call the API service dot get call. That's it. Okay, we are passing the API service dot get call. That's it. Okay, so no need to call the do object dot get. Okay, I'm writing the wrapper class. Here I'm writing the do related code. Okay, so this is a get like this. Okay, similar like that, I will write a post call also. Okay, the future, 1 second, future. Whatever the data, the error or whatever it is, we are sending back to the dynamic call. Okay, post call. In the post call, what you are passing? Okay, URL endpoint, right? We are passing the URL directly. We are URL. So endpoint, whatever it is, directly we are passing the URL. Or else we can pass like the path, name as a path. And other one is we are passing the data also, right? So data, dynamic dot data. This is a post method. So till now we are using these two. Let's use this one. Let's implement this one. Later I will add other one also. Okay. In the try catch, I will call the API. In the catch, okay, in the catch, what is the exception you are getting? We are catching the exception here. Okay. So what is the exception? The try catch final response equal to write await. This write asynchronous method await. Our DO object is here. DO dot get. Here call the URL. That's it. This is way of calling. After receive the response, we'll send a response back. We'll send a response back. Okay. If is error also, we send a error as a message. Okay. Error as a message. Okay. This is simple get call. That's it. Okay. So wherever you want, you can call directly API service dot get call. We are not called through the DO later because of we are writing the wrapper class for the DO here. Okay. Similar like that, the try catch. Okay. Async. Here is a post call. Post call and send the path. Okay. Comma data. We are passing the data, our body. That's it. So this is the writing the wrapper class for the DO package. Okay. Now, so here, what is the see as per the flow diagram. Let's open the flow diagram. As per this one, this is a remote data source. Okay, the web services that is written now. The remote data source is now API. So that's for this I'm writing the call for the API. I create a class for the API services. Now come to the repository. I didn't create a repository till now. That meaning is the repository will talk into the API services. Okay, the view model is talking to repository. Okay, now directly the view model till now the view model directly call the web services. The two layer is not there, repository layer and this layer is not there previously, right? Directly view models call the API, retrieve the response and send back to the view. But now we need to create a repository and already we create a web services API services now. Now let's create a repository now. Okay. So here we completed the cars view model, right? For this, I'm going to create the repository inside the car. Okay. Inside the repository. Car repository dot. He'll write a abstract class. So for now, car repository. This is the car repository class. Abstract class is a keyword. This is here. I'll write a function. What is the function? Just I'm going to get the dynamic. Okay. Get cars list. This is API. In this API, we are passing the input as a URL. That's it. This is abstract class. Here in the abstract class, in the repository, I will create a cars repository implementation. impl dot. Okay, here class cars repository impl extends abstract class. What is the abstract class? Car repository. Now we have one method you need to implement. Create a override. Okay, now this method, what is the this method is there? Okay, this method we call the API. Okay, future dynamic, right? This method directly is talking to the API service. Okay, here that's why here I will create a object for the API service. API services equal to API services. API services. Okay. So now using the API services, return API services dot, we are going to call the get call, right? Just to pass the data like this. That's it. That is a work of the repository now. Okay. So here the communication between the view model API service is repository. Okay. In the future, if you want to call get the cars from the Firebase, we create a separate repository called reposit car repository IMPL with Firebase. Just it. Okay. So now let's create a class. Okay, class car repository Firebase. Okay, extend abstract class car repository. Now implement that method. Instead of see here, instead of calling the API through the API service, okay, we'll create a separate API service for the Firebase. This repository is talking to the that repository. Okay, now you can observe here. Now this repository talking to the remote database, that is the web services now, okay, in the data layer. But in the future, maybe instead of the web service, if you want to implement the SQLite or Firebase, again this repository, based on this repository, decide which service I need to get the data from the API or Firebase. That will decide in the repository only. Okay, so forget about the Firebase implementation now. Let's do with the implementation with the API service. Okay, now come to the view model. Here we'll create a repository for the cars model. Okay, final repository. Okay, and here what is the repository name? Car repository. Okay, where is that? Car repository. Okay, instead of creating the object like this, okay, okay, not directly, right? Okay, sorry, we can't create an object for directly, just we define the variable like this. Okay, so here, okay, so now we create a car repository. This repository, let's see here, cause little bit confused is there. Okay, let me explain now. We create a API service now, and one repository is contain the abstract class, abstract class, and implementation is there. Okay, so here this is abstract class. In this, using the dependence injection, which repository you need to call? Okay, you want to call the repository as a Firebase, or if you want to call the repository API services, that is will decide in the view model. How can you decide? Need to create a constructor for the cars view model. Here I'm going to construct the using the constructor this dot repository, and this should be required. I will create a use the required keyword. Okay, required this dot repository. Okay, so wherever you use this view model, we need to pass the that view model now. Okay, in the main dot we decide the view model, right? Here we call the while running this application. While running the application, which repository you want to call? I need a repository called cars repository cars car repository instead of Firebase. Okay, car repository implementation. Okay, implementation. We pass this object. Is it clear? See, while running the application, if you want to call the API through the API services, I will use the this I will pass the this cars implementation. If your application maybe it connect to the Firebase, we'll call the cars repository implementation Firebase. Okay, no change in the view model, no change in the business logic. That is called a dependency injection. We are passing the cars repository here. In the view model, don't know directly the view model directly call the repository dot get cars. That's it. Okay, we didn't call in. We remove the D object here, and directly we are passing the endpoint here, and we remove the everything here. Okay, and repository directly call the cars list. Okay, based on the dependent injection. Okay, if you want to call the through the API service, get the car list, pass the cars implementation through the provider. But if you want to call the API service with the Firebase, we can use the Firebase implementation in the view model. But we there is no change in the view model. Okay, there is no change. Just we are passing the repository. Which repository this repository object is belongs to which one? Is this repository object is belongs to the implementation? It's called the implementation method. This repository, the repository address is related to Firebase. In the Firebase, this method will call. Okay, but there is no change in the view model. Okay, if you want to write a test cases, we'll write a separate repository for the test cases. That test cases will run the test cases, but there is no change in the here. Hope is clear, everyone. So that's why we call the API through the view model to repository. The repository decide if you want to connect to API service or Firebase through based on the our what you are passing in the main dot in the provider. In the provider, I'm passing the implementation, cars repository implementation. This implementation call the API service to get the API call. Okay. In the view model, if you wherever you use the view model, if you pass the this repository is a Firebase thing, it's get the response from the Firebase. Okay, there is no change in the view model and view or object. Just only thing is the way of the data layer is decide, the repository is decide it through the if you want to get the data from local database or Firebase, or else if you want to data from the API service, the repository we decide. In the view model there is nothing, they don't have any idea about the repository, which repository need to call. Just we pass the object through the repository, through the dependency injection. So the repository is a decide which API need to call, is Firebase or API services. Okay.